I'm going to show you why that new car you're lusting after is not actually too expensive. You just aren't being paid enough. I review a different car every week, and it doesn't matter if it's a Toyota or a Bentley. I always get a comment saying that's too expensive and I can't possibly afford that. In this video, I'm going to show you why the car is not actually the problem, and they've actually kept up with inflation just fine, but your salary has not. So let's start with one of the cars that I'm reviewing this week, the 2023 Mazda Miata. Now I want to point out at the beginning of this video that I'm going to be using base prices to compare the cars, but this Miata that I'm driving is a little bit more expensive. So you can currently go to the dealership and buy a base 2023 Mazda MX-5 Miata Sport for just over $28,000. Now let's look at a 2003 Miata. You could get a base Miata Club back then, a little over 20 years ago, for an even $20,000. Now factoring in for inflation, and I'm going to use 2002 numbers because that's when the 2003 Miata was sold, that's actually around 34 grand in today's money. That means you can now get a Miata for about $6,000 less in real money when factoring for inflation. And that doesn't even factor in how much better the Miata is today than it was back then. A 2003 Miata only had 142 horsepower. This one has a whopping 181 horsepower. You also get a 6-speed transmission instead of 5, and you get an infotainment system with Apple CarPlay. That didn't even exist 20 years ago. But the Miata is just one example, right? So let's look at the other vehicle that I'm reviewing this week, the 2023 Chevy Colorado. Now, admittedly, Chevy didn't make a Colorado 20 years ago, so this won't be a direct comparison, but I am going to compare it to the mid-size truck that Chevy did sell back then, the S10. It is worth noting that the S10 was a lot more basic than today's Colorado. You could get it as a regular cab model with rear-wheel drive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the Crew Cab S10, which came as standard with four-wheel drive. Now, a 2003 Chevy S10 Crew Cab with four-wheel drive retailed for just over $24,000. In today's money, that's over 41 grand. And if you equip the new Colorado work truck with four-wheel drive, you're only looking at about 34 grand. And just like with the Miata, that doesn't even factor in how much more capable the new Colorado is compared to that dinky S10. The S10 only made 190 horsepower. This has 237 horsepower with a turbo. And even if you add the version of this engine that makes 310 horsepower, the Colorado is still cheaper when factoring for inflation. Plus, it is just so much more modern inside and safer. And just to prove to everybody that I didn't just cherry pick two really good examples, let's take a look at some other popular vehicles. How about the Toyota Camry? You could buy a 2003 Camry for just over $19,000. Factoring in for inflation, that's over 32 grand in today's money. But a brand new Camry can be had for just $26,000. What about something sporty and luxurious? The 2003 BMW M3 was just over 46 grand. That's almost 79,000 in today's money, but a brand new M3 is just 74,000. Even the legendary Porsche 911 is cheaper now than it was back then. A 2003 911 Carrera was $72,000, which is $122,000 in today's money, but a brand new 911 Carrera is just $106,000. Now, I must admit, there are one or two examples where the car actually does outpace inflation. The best-selling vehicle in North America, the Ford F-150, was just under 19 grand in 2003, which is about $32,000 in today's money. A brand new F-150 is a little over 33 grand, so it is more expensive, but not by much. And now it's time to get to the other half of the equation of why cars seem like they're too expensive. Your salary has not kept up with inflation. Not even close. So the median household income back in 2002 was $63,976, according to the US Census. Adjusted for inflation, that's a whopping $108,000 that should be your household income today. Now, unfortunately, the US Census only goes up to 2021, where the median household income was just under 71 grand. I think you can probably tell where this one is going. I couldn't really find a definitive source on what today's median household income is, but I found an average of about $81,000. Remember when I said you should be making about $108,000 adjusted for inflation? That basically means there's over $27,000 missing from your paycheck every year. Putting that into more manageable terms, that basically means you should be making an extra $2,300 per month. Now, the average car payment in 2003 is about $725 a month. That means you could afford 3 of the average new car in 2021 with the money that you're missing from your salary because it didn't keep up with inflation. I mean, just think about what kind of car you could buy if you were making $2,200 more every month. That's crazy! So remember, it's not the automaker's fault that cars are too expensive, it's your employer. Now let's all go ask for more money!